Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. Thank you so much for joining us today on the day after the election, or what I like to call the election week, as it may be turning out to be. So here's a little bit of information about the University of Arizona Health Sciences. We have our two campuses, one here at our main campus in Tucson, and we also have our biomedical campus up at the Phoenix location. We are led by Dr. Michael Dake, who is our Senior Vice President for Health Sciences. We'd love for you to follow us on all of our social media links, and please follow me at Medina Wildcat on Twitter. I'd like to introduce you to our team. I'm Anne-Marie Medina. I'm the Director of Corporate and Community Relations here in Tucson, and we also have Caroline Berger, who serves in that position up at our Phoenix campus, and Allison Otu, who is our Executive Director. We'd love for you to connect with us, so please drop us an email, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Today, you will be getting a presentation for about 20 minutes. There's also going to be opportunities for you to ask questions at the end. Please just drop those questions in the chat box, and I'll make sure and ask our presenter those questions at the end of her presentation. So just click that link at the bottom of the screen. After the presentation today, we will send you up a follow-up email. We will have a session evaluation for you, which is a lovely survey that we want you to fill out for us so we can get your feedback. We'll provide you with all the links and resources that will be presented today, and also a link to the recording of this video, along with the links to all of our past sessions. So without further ado, please let me introduce our speaker for the day. Dr. Leslie Bosch is a staff member in the College of Medicine at the University of Arizona. She earned her PhD in Family Studies and Human Development from the University of Arizona. In addition, she received her certification as an integrative wellness coach from the Andrew Weil Center for Integrative Medicine here at the U of A. Leslie is dedicated to helping others pursue optimal health through integrative wellness. Thanks for joining us, Leslie, and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I guess I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah.
So welcome to my presentation entitled Roadmap to Transformation: How to Navigate the Gap Between Here and There. Have you ever wondered why change is so difficult? Essentially, change is so difficult because once a self-regulatory system becomes automatic, it aims to maintain itself. It's akin to the thermostat on your heating and cooling system. Once you establish a temperature setting, then the system works tirelessly to maintain that set point. So how can we establish a new set point? How can we generate a new self-regulatory system? In our brief time together, I aim to increase your change IQ by detailing the stages of change, the roadblocks you're apt to encounter on the road to change, and some remedies you can use to increase your odds of successfully navigating the change territory. Successful change unfolds over time and involves navigating the stages of change, which are based on nearly 4 decades of research spearheaded by Prochaska and DiClemente. Scientific evidence from their rich program of research suggests that there are essentially 5 stages of change. To make the material more meaningful, I invite you to call to mind a change that you're either currently making or that you're thinking about making. Then, as I go through each stage, try to identify which stage of change you're in. Throughout the presentation, I'll be giving examples related to stress management. So in stage 1, or pre-contemplation, people are often unaware that their behavior is problematic or produces negative consequences. When aware, they overestimate the cons of changing and underestimate the pros of changing. So people in this stage don't intend to change in the foreseeable future. People in this stage tend to talk in terms of I won't or I can't make the change. For example, someone struggling with stress management may not be willing to change because they've yet to recognize the connection between stress and inflammation and chronic disease. So they may imagine that there's nothing to change because stress is just part of life. In stage 2, or contemplation, people recognize that their behavior may be problematic. However, in this stage, people are conflicted about change. They're caught between the pros and the cons of making a change. So they often have great difficulty getting off the fence. Nevertheless, people in this stage are thinking about changing in the foreseeable future. People in this stage say, I may make the change. In our stress management example, the individual may, on the one hand, recognize that worrying is keeping them up at night, but on the other hand, they just can't imagine how they'll take on one more commitment. In stage 3, or preparation, people are ready to take action in the near future. They start to take small steps toward the behavior change, and they believe that changing their behavior can lead to a healthier life. People in this stage say, I will make the change. In our stress management example, the individual will have decided that it's time to do something and will have started looking into possible solutions, such as taking a yoga class or a meditation class. In stage 4, or action, people have recently changed their behavior and intend to keep moving forward with that behavioral change. People in this stage say, I am making the change. In our stress management example, the individual will have begun taking a yoga or meditation class with plans to continue. Finally, in stage 5, or maintenance, people have sustained their behavioral change for more than 6 months and intend to maintain the change going forward. In this stage, people work to prevent relapse to earlier stages. People in this stage say, I am still making the change. In our stress management example, the individual has been taking a yoga or meditation class for more than 6 months and plans to continue doing so indefinitely. If they miss a class, they get right back on track as soon as possible. So the stages of change function like a map that helps us identify where someone is on their change journey. The research used to discover the stages of change also charts typical roadblocks people face when navigating the change territory, including 12 strategies that successful self-changers routinely use to address these roadblocks. Today, by way of introduction, I'll highlight 3 roadblocks and 3 remedies. As you can see, the roadblocks I've selected typically occur in stage 1 and stage 2 of the change territory. So let's turn our attention to 3 roadblocks that typically occur at the beginning of a change journey. They've been dubbed defensiveness, don't know how, and dread of failure. First, we may grapple with the biggest challenge of all, which is our tendency to defend the status quo. This harkens back to the analogy I made at the beginning about the thermostat to your heating and cooling system. Unfortunately, there are many ways to protect a bad habit. For example, we can tune out through selective attention or by changing the topic of conversation. Unfortunately, this defense eliminates opportunities to gather useful information about our problem and potential solutions. We can internalize by attacking, blaming, and punishing the self. Regrettably, this defense undermines self-esteem and self-efficacy. We can project by blaming others. Sadly, this defense removes the opportunity to learn from our mistakes and to take control of our contribution to the solution. Finally, we can rationalize or rely on plausible explanations for our behavior. Woefully, this defense ensures we will suffer the consequences of our unhealthy behavior. So, for example, like our exemplar, I've struggled with stress management. In the past, I'd tune out when people told me, calm down, or I'd attack myself for being a worrywart, or I'd blame others for simply not being supportive enough. Or I'd tell myself, stress is just part of living. I've got to get used to it. It wasn't until I discovered the connection between chronic stress and a whole host of poor health outcomes, such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and impaired immune function that I started to think seriously about taking personal responsibility for my distress and trying to change how I responded to the demands of living. As long as we can fool ourselves into thinking everything's okay, then it's really difficult to take an honest look at our risky behaviors and increase our awareness enough to move from stage 1 to stage 2. Next, we often contend with don't know how. It's easy to focus on the difficulties associated with learning something new. On top of everything else we've got going on, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the thought of scaling yet another steep learning curve. When I decided to change my response to stress, I didn't know where to begin, and I imagined it would take me forever to achieve even the slightest shift in my neurobiology. Sure, I knew about brain plasticity, but my unchecked stress response had been gaining traction for decades. How could I hope to turn things around? And this type of thinking often leads to our final roadblock, which is the dread of failure. Once this occurs, it's easy to fall into doubt, and where there's doubt, there's apt to be delay. Moreover, dread of failure can be intensified if we've tried and failed before. Regardless, it's easy to recall lots of disappointments, whether or not they're related to our desired change. Although I'd yet to grapple with my stress response, when I thought about changing, my mind was flooded with lots of meaningful failures that served to fill me with doubt and caused me to delay my change efforts. So we've talked about defensiveness, don't know how, and dread of failure. So what can we do to remedy these typical roadblocks that often stop us before we've even had a chance to get started? Well, to remedy defensiveness, we can raise our awareness around the effects of our risky behavior and take an honest look at our problem. So for example, when I decided to change my response to stress, I raised my awareness around 3 aspects. First, I realized that when I'm stressed, I eat more junk food, I get less exercise, I get headaches, I have a tight chest, I have shallow breathing, I grind my teeth, I have trouble sleeping, I feel fatigued, I feel grouchy, I avoid friends and family, and I feel little joy. Second, I looked at the effects of stress on others. I recognized the effects of emotional contagion. That is, I realized that my distress was distressing others. Finally, I became aware of how my thoughts and beliefs were driving my distress. For example, I realized that I was scaring myself by imagining worst-case scenarios, that I was criticizing myself when things didn't go as planned, and that I was taking entirely too much responsibility for other people's behavior. This newly discovered information increased my desire to change. So what can we do to remedy don't know how? Thankfully, access to information about the change process abounds. And if other people can change, then we can change too. So to remedy the challenges associated with don't know how, we can look for science-backed strategies that work. We can adopt a growth mindset, and we can delight in the opportunity to learn something new. So for example, when I decided to optimize my response to stress, I made a list of science-backed relaxation techniques that I wanted to learn, including autogenics, guided imagery, meditation, and self-compassion. I enjoyed learning about and applying these techniques, which helped to strengthen my commitment to stick with the change process and not quit. Finally, what can we do to remedy the dread of failure and the associated doubt and delay? Well, when changing our behavior, we often weigh the pros and cons, and our first attempt usually ends up being heavy on the cons and light on the pros. So to increase our desire to change, we can remedy the situation by intentionally increasing our pros and decreasing our cons. So, for example, when I wanted to optimize my response to stress, I made a list of all the pros or all the reasons I wanted to make the change, including I want to reduce the risk of high blood pressure, digestive problems, chronic fatigue, headaches, heart disease, stroke, high blood sugar, an impaired immune system, jaw pain from grinding my teeth, irritable bowel syndrome, and depression. I also wanted to have better self-esteem, to have more control in my life, to function better at work and home, to improve my concentration, to increase my joy in life, to feel more relaxed, to sleep better, to be more hopeful about the future, and to feel more centered, and finally to be a good role model for friends, family, and coworkers. Then, with a renewed sense of possibility, I started to tackle my cons, or all the reasons I wanted to stay the same. For example, in response to the con, it takes too much time. I told myself, if I don't make the time now, things will only get worse and take even more time in the future. Plus, I'm certain my time is spent better relaxing than it is worrying. In response to the con, stress drives me to be more productive. I told myself, that's a myth. Research clearly demonstrates that people function better when experiencing positive emotions, such as joy, love, and gratitude, than when experiencing negative emotions, such as fear, frustration, and guilt. Finally, in response to the con, I don't know how, I told myself, I'm learning, and I'm motivated to remain poised throughout the day. So to recap, based on a rich program of research spanning nearly 4 decades, which was spearheaded by Prochaska and DiClemente, we know there are essentially 5 stages to change. They are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. These stages function like a map that helps us navigate the change territory. We also know that there are typical roadblocks that we can expect to encounter, including defensiveness, don't know how, and dread of failure. Moreover, we know that there are remedies for overcoming these roadblocks. You can remedy defensiveness by raising your awareness around the effects of your risky behavior. You can remedy don't know how by modeling successful others, adopting a growth mindset, and taking delight in learning something new. You can remedy dread of failure and the associated doubt and delay by increasing your pros and decreasing your cons for embarking on your change adventure. Before I close, I'll highlight one more remedy, and that's the power of a helping relationship, one that's built on unconditional positive regard, empathy, and a genuine interest in your success. Successful self-changers seek social support, especially when facing the demands and stresses associated with change. So ask yourself, who can you be open with when you're feeling emotionally and psychologically weak? If you have no one to confide in, working with a caring coach can be a critical choice. Such individuals are trained to help you navigate the change territory. So take a moment to locate yourself on your change journey and to imagine how you might apply the remedies I've highlighted to help you overcome any roadblocks you might be experiencing. Also, if my brief overview sparks your curiosity, then I invite you to read the Prochaska's book, Changing to Thrive, using the stages of change to overcome the top threats to your health and happiness. Or hire a coach, someone who's well-versed in the change process, someone who can help you navigate the often perilous territory between where you are now and where you'd like to be in the future. As an integrative wellness coach, I'd be delighted to support your success. An integrative approach to health and wellness recognizes the roles of the mind, body, and spirit, and stresses the importance of autonomy, self-care, and the interdependence of lifestyle choices in 7 core areas of health, including sleep, nutrition, movement, relationships, environment, spirituality, and resilience. As an integrative wellness coach, in one-on-one and group settings, I've helped clients figure out how to sleep better, how to eat healthier, how to become more physically active, how to enhance their relationships, how to organize their environment, how to find a renewed sense of purpose, and as we've discussed today, how to optimize their stress response and become more resilient in an ever-changing world. Whatever your wellness challenge, coaching is a proven way to increase your odds of success. Although the road to transformation can be difficult and uncertain, as with any road trip, there's lots you can do to ensure that you successfully arrive at your desired destination. I wish you all the very best on your change journey. And thank you for your attention. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Leslie. Yes, we have some. So if you'll stop sharing your screen, that way we'll be able to see your full face. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation with extremely detailed steps on what the process of change is, and then how we can avoid all of those roadblocks that come up that we know we deal with. So we have some wonderful questions. One is, what is an easy remedy or an option for sudden rapid change where you don't have the opportunity to really go through all those phases?
Excellent, excellent question. Just like what's happening right now, right? We're like in a rapid change. And unfortunately, we probably still have to go through the changes or the stages, even though we might want to try and do it at a more accelerated pace. Or we might feel that we have to just jump into action, and then maybe we'll have to back up and figure out how to really, sign up for the change. This can really be a challenge, and this is where you find yourself in the pre-contemplation and the contemplation stages of change, where we really feel that change is being foisted upon us, and somehow we have to figure out how to seize that as an opportunity and want to engage with the change. And that can be challenging, especially when we've lost something precious, and we sometimes have to mourn the loss of that. So there's a lot going on when change is suddenly foisted upon us.
Great. I love the point about building healthy relationships, understanding the focus on changing me. What is your advice on how to create change for others? Thinking about their children or their nephew, how can I translate these learnings and practices for them?
That's such a great question. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you're already sort of thinking how to apply this in your life. Probably the best thing to do is, of course, to try and lead by example. And what I mean by that is to come up with the change that you'd like to do, and then maybe apply the stages of change and the remedies of change in your own life, and then share liberally with others about how that's going, both that you're having difficulty and how you're overcoming those difficulties. Another thing you could do would be to invite them to do a change with you. Like maybe they want to do one change, but you want to do another change, but you recognize that the kind of companionship of working a change together is more fun. That's the social support piece. Ultimately, if you want to try and just nudge them without the leadership piece, then, or the side-by-side piece, I would really encourage that you meet them where they are. And this is where you can really pull up your change IQ to help you better understand where they are, and then to use the specific strategies for that stage in their journey. I hope that makes sense.
You mentioned autogenics and guided imagery and self-compassion. What was the fourth thing you mentioned?
I think that was, say it again.
There was autogenics, guided imagery, self-compassion.
It was meditation.
And meditation. Great. And we have had, I think I shared with you, Dr. Judith Gordon's guided imagery app that we have suggested for folks. There's a lot of great free apps out there for meditation and guided imagery.
Absolutely.
So is it best to make one change at a time, or to tackle supporting changes all at once. For example, if you need to lose weight and maybe get moving, should you start dieting and exercising at the same time, or take one of those on at a time?
That's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. And typically, we encourage you to tackle one change at a time, given all the demands that are on you sort of to do that. But Prochaska does talk about in his book how you can tackle more than one thing at a time when you have these sort of interrelated behaviors like diet and exercise. But typically, even then, you want to make sure that you do baby steps. You want to ensure that you succeed and then build on those successes. So just be careful not to bite off a big chunk. Keep it manageable.
Okay. So we've always heard that old saying, it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. How long does it really take for a change to go from pre-contemplation up to maintenance?
That is an excellent question. Like, who knows, really, right? You could be grappling with the change for 10 years because you can't get out of pre-contemplation. But in truth, once people get into action, right, and they start working their plan, Prochaska, the research indicates that it's about 6 months. 6 months until the relapse curves kind of fall off. So be sure and gear up for 6 months and know that, remember, that old behavior is really hardwired. And so it's going to take a while to hardwire the new behavior. So in the beginning, you can expect that the old behavior, force of habit, is going to trump the new behavior like a lot, right? But just stick with it, stick with it, stick with it. And eventually the new behavior will begin to trump and overtake the old behavior.
Great. We do have a comment that says, thank you so much. A fantastic presentation and great information. I wanted to make sure and pass that on to you, Leslie.
Thank
you so much for your time. I think this is a really important topic for us, especially right now. I know a lot of us are have been forced into different situations that we know we need to probably change some of those habits we've picked up along the way. And so this was really very helpful. So thank you so much for your time, Leslie. I really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for having me. It's been such a treat to be here and to share this important information. I really hope it serves you in your life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go back to sharing my screen here. So again, thank you to Dr. Bosch for having us learn about the roadmap to transformation. We really appreciate her time and all the information that she provided. So don't forget, our next session is going to be November 18th. So we're on to our every other week. And we're going to have a wonderful presentation from Dr. Ruth Taylor Pila. She is going to be teaching us about Tai Chi and its benefits for health and well-being. She'll also be taking us through some of the movements. So be prepared to get up and move around. You can do it from a chair or from standing position. She is with our College of Nursing and she specializes in Tai Chi for health and well-being. So we hope you can join us then. I also want to let you know that during the holiday session, we are going to be offering you something brand new. It's called Wellness Wednesdays, Celebrating Health and Holiday. So we, instead of having our half-hour sessions on Wednesdays, we are going to be having a 6-week newsletter series that will include hints and tips for your mind, body, and spirit. There will be recipes, exercises, great information to help you get through that holiday season. So I will include the link to sign up for that in the follow-up email, and we hope that you will take advantage of that. Pass it on to all your friends and family and get that information to them. So again, thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of all of us here at the University of Arizona Health Sciences, be safe, be well, and of course, bear down and mask up. Thanks all.